Hi, I'm Kim Brassor, your podcast host, and our podcast, One Voice Evolving, is about my voice individually as I grow through the changes that are coming, and our voice collectively as we attempt to provide racial equity in our country in our lifetime. And I know there are naysayers who think that's not possible, but I'm telling you, we've had a week here, and things move at fast pace when the universe decides to move. So my intention is to create a safe container and a safe space for us to do the work of having civil discourse in the places where our lives intersect, so that we can work together, work through our differences, and work together toward a mutually beneficial outcome. What does all of that mean? Well, I am an author, speaker, and executive coach. And I decided every 5 weeks I'm going to come on here and visit with you about what have I learned, what baby steps have I taken, what am I providing for you that didn't exist a month ago, and how can we join forces to move forward together. So here's how we're going to start today. I'm going to recap from the last 4 speakers that we had this month, and then I'm going to talk to you about intersectionality of our various identities, why the differences matter, and how we can merge into a new world. Sounds ambitious. Sounds a little scary. Sounds to me like a lot of fun and something that provides some hope and security beyond the next paycheck. So let's see if we can have this conversation. So the first 4 weeks of One Voice Evolving podcast, we were laying the foundation from my exposure to racial equity through the eyes of the Rare Woman Collective. And I had some guests on who were closely involved with that to help lay the foundation. And one of the guests we had, which was Melody LeBaron, talked about somatic healing. And I found a lot of value in that for the place I was in. And so I find that my guests are being brought to me in exactly the order and exactly the time that I most need to hear what they have to say. And that's what I want to share with you on my podcast today. In this last month, what have I noticed, learned, shifted, and how can I share that with you best? So our first guest of the month, episode 6, was Tracy Butler Johnson, and the title was Raising Children in a Racist World. And by hearing her story and her development of coming up in integrated societal structures and her own ways that her identities intersected with racism, and then developing her own family, and she's an educator. It was really good for me to catch the wind of her bravery and her humility and her passion for making this world a better place for the children that she teaches and the children that she births. And I learned not to be so careful with my words from that one. Next up, we had Liz Strayton, who is breaking bias and barriers in higher education. And one of the things she said during that podcast, which was episode 7, she credits the grace of Black women when she came into the DEI space from a very conservative viewpoint and community and had no exposure, and made a lot of stumbles along the way. And it was the Black women who were patient and kind and caring and still called her out, called her to accountability. Difference between calling somebody out in a gotcha and calling somebody in closer so they can learn. And that develops trust, and that makes a safe place, and people grow in that environment. And Liz certainly has grown, and so has her career development along that way. And so her particular podcast got quite a bit of traction with our communities on our social media. And I valued that conversation greatly. From that, I learned her advice was, we need to just listen to Black women. And so I did, in a different way. Instead of coming in with my white supremacy, I read the books, I think I know the answers, I don't need any more help, self-sufficiency that I, as a white woman, have been taught from birth. So episode 8 then was Melody LeBaron, who I had never met. I saw her on Facebook when I first opened One Voice Evolving, and I was looking to see who else in this space was doing this kind of work. And she had been doing racial equity, and then she had stepped away from it on Facebook because of bots and trolls and how much admin time it took. So by the time she came onto our podcast, we got to see the evolution of how she brought the work that she does with transforming death, creating sacred space, moving through grief, and somatic body healing. She intersected in multiple ways, deconstructing religion, deconstructing colonialism, deconstructing racism. And it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to see that none of our stories is as simple as we want it to be. There is no one sentence, one paragraph fix for everybody. This is not. Everybody has some level of privilege and everybody has some level of discrimination. Take a deep breath. And the techniques that she gave for somatic healing were so helpful and so necessary in my body coming off of my sister's death, particularly, and coming into more attention on social media around racial equity, that turned out to be just what the doctor ordered, to keep my nervous system calm enough to then begin to navigate the comments on social media and YouTube and podcasts, and to decide, how do I respond? When do I respond? When do I block? And what are the criteria? What causes me to do that? And so my sharing with you at the end of this is going to be how my container is shifting as a result of the things I learned this month. The last piece of that was episode 9, and that was Shantara McBride, who is the co-author of Courageous Discomfort: How to Have Important, Brave, Life-Changing Conversations About Race and Racism. And one of the quotes that she said that we used as the lead is, "I don't want to shame white people." And that seems to be such a sticking point for white people who are afraid to open up and lean in to this learning and this work, that we led with that to specifically start to tease out the white women and the white people who are going to be inclined to do the work from the ones who just are not ready to hear. Because truthfully, my background in 12-step work says recovery is for people who want it, not for people who need it. And there are always more people who are going to need to open their minds than there are who are going to be willing to. And I don't have the time or the energy to sort through everybody's denial. So we're teasing out who's out of denial, who wants to come in, and those are the people that I'm going to give the time, energy, and attention to. And I have no problem at all showing you the exit. Oh, no, wait. I'll hold the door and make sure that it closes tightly behind you. I'm not afraid to block people, and I'm not afraid to be blocked. So enjoy. So Shantara, what I learned from, she was lovely. But what I experienced with my podcast with Shantara was life-changing. And here's why. Because I got to feel the grace of Black women when newbie white women like me are in the space and just running my mouth instead of just listening. And she was so gracious and so adept at turning the conversation back to what mattered without shaming me or shutting me down in the process. If you haven't seen episode 9, if you only see one episode this quarter, make it that one. I hope it moves you the way it moved me. So one of the things that Shantara and her co-author Rosalind Weissman have done is they have created a 52-week journal for reflection and action. And on Facebook, One Voice Evolving has a private group that we started for people who watch the podcast and want to discuss them. We are turning that space, that private group on Facebook, into a space where we can both write in a journal, reflect on our experiences and learning, and then create an action plan. I've always excelled at being able to create safe places for people to do deeper work so that we can actually check the boxes of, is this safe? How is this safe? And how can we all engage equally in that space? And I really am excited about this. And I hope you all will come and join and check it out. Now, there is an approval process for that. You can go to One Voice Evolving Facebook page, or you can go to onevoiceevolving.com and check our resources there for fun, for free, and anonymously. It doesn't matter. But for the private group, you have to have watched at least one podcast. You have to be inclined to want to make a shift in your life and the lives of the people around you. And you have to be able to be transparently honest, because we're going to tell stories and then we're going to do coaching through any triggers that might come up around those stories. We're going to share our reading. We're going to share our writings. We're going to have community. We're going to have civil discourse, where it might be the only place in social media we actually get to practice civil discourse. And it's going to be work because it's going to be moderated, and I'm the moderator. And I'm really good and really experienced at making a safe place for people to say what they need to say, feel what they need to feel, know what they need to know, and move from there. So our topic on that page now is intersectionality and civil discourse. So what is intersectionality? It is a concept coined by Kimberlé Crenshaw in 1989 to describe how various forms of social subcategories, like race, gender, and class, intersect to create unique dynamics and effects. When we recognize that individuals can't be defined by a single aspect of identity, it's not just black and white, it's not black and brown and shades of gray, it's not just African American and Native American, it's not anyone, it's not men and women, it's not bears and men. It is the intersection of your experience, your upbringing, your education, and your intention that you bring to the table, all of it. And it is why these conversations must be civil and there must be a safe container, because nobody is going to show you their heart. The way we communicate in humanity is, first we communicate face to face. I'm going to just tell you the facts. Head to head, why I think those facts matter, and then heart to heart, why it matters to me and how it has changed me. First order change, this racial equity that we want to see in our lifetime, doesn't happen from mouth to mouth or head to head. It happens heart to heart. But before we can get there, we have to share, check, share to make sure this is a safe place. And we don't share with our hearts with strangers or even with family. First, we give a little information. We see what they come back with, safe or not safe. So one of the things we'll talk about in the group is, how can you tell if somebody is safe, and how do you become that safe person for somebody else? Because without trust, and right now trust is broken, without trust, there will be no forward momentum. So we'll start there. And then that gotcha mentality comes from here, this basic fundamental belief that says there's one way, the right way, my way. If you had authoritarian parents, you know exactly how that feels. And you know exactly how sneaky you needed to be to get around the maneuvering so you could still do what you wanted to do in defiance. And if you had oppositional defiance disorder, or rejection sensitivity, or any other of the isms that can come into play, then you got especially skilled and talented by the time you were even 18. Well, add a couple decades onto that, and honey, you're a pro, and so am I. So what we want to do is we want to move from the gotchas and the not open to any new ideas to create a safe space for people to truly connect heart to heart, head to head, heart to heart. So the practical ways we're going to educate ourselves. We're not just going to read, we're not just going to listen, but we're going to journal, because the only story that matters is the one I tell myself. The only story that matters is after I've written and after I've reflected and after I've considered, what does it mean to me? Because that's the one I'm going to move on. We don't make decisions based on data. We make decisions based on emotion. How does that data make me feel? And it is from how I feel about it that I am moved. And so if I can make you feel about my cause the way I feel about my cause, then you're going to want to join my cause. I'm not trying to market to you. I'm trying to share with you, this is how the human condition exists. And one thing we all have in common, no matter what our other subspecies, subtopics are, we are all humanity. We are all part of humanity. We are all driven by the same fundamental basic needs. Everybody wants to feel connected, wants to feel empowered, wants to feel hope. The first thing, whenever I have a guest on, and whenever I am a guest, when the recording has stopped, the first thing anybody asks is, how did I do? How did it go? Because we need that feedback reflected to us, for better or worse, in order to grow. We are the mirror for you, and you are the mirror for me. So we're going to educate ourselves and others. We're gonna, if we're working in the workplace, we're gonna develop inclusive practices and policies, and we're gonna make sure that those initiatives are accessible to all the subcategories. No matter where you intersect, are you a Black woman in a white collar environment? Are you a white woman in a masculine and all male environment? Are you a um, is your age a disability in the under 30 crowd where you work? All things to consider. We're going to amplify marginalized voices. And one of the ways I'm doing that is on One Voice Evolving podcast and website and anywhere I engage. We're going to build coalitions across movements. This is not just white women I'm talking to or talking about. And it's not just Black women. Oh, it's not just women. It's going to be, I have guests coming on who are male and female, who are multi-intersectionalized. So we're going to hear a lot of things, and any one of those marginalized identities could make you uncomfortable. I encourage you, as you are doing the work, to write about it, reflect on it, and decide what action you want to take. Your action might be take what you need and leave the rest and don't listen to that podcast. Your action might be take a deep breath and breathe through it, see what it is that's triggered in you that makes you so reactive that you want to shut it down. Because that's where your growth is. We are going to engage in reflection and accountability. The Write, Reflect, Act journal is part of our Facebook group, is something we are going to use there. So August 1, we're going to start that. And if you want to join us, that's at facebook.com/onevoiceevolving. And you should be able to find it that way. The group, by the way, is private. Nobody can see who's in the group, and nobody can see what they write in the group. You'll be able to, because if you've joined it, It's on your feed. But nobody who you know who is not in the group is going to be able to. So your content is secure. Going to support intersectional research, both with our money and our time. And when we get that research, then we're going to use that to create the policies and initiatives that are going to advance racial equity in our lifetime. So there is learning and there is action, because it is not enough. Ever learning and never coming to an understanding of the truth does not suffice. We have to take action, and we have to be able to listen to the marginalized voices to say, what kind of action would you like to see happen here before we decide to go out and be a white savior and change the world with what we think it ought to be? Because honestly, if I am not part of your marginalized community, I have no clue what the experience in your body and your life and your family and your children has been. And most of the time, when I hear it, it breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. But when you have to survive it, you don't have time to have a broken heart. You only have time to keep surviving. And so we want to not just be an ally, we want to be an advocate, and we want to be a game changer that changes it so you don't have to be holding your breath, waiting to exhale when you get home. So we're going to create safe places. We're going to have ground rules, which I already have, and we will train on those. We're going to offer support services like counseling or mediation for those affected by intense discussions. We are going to teach how to speak so people will listen, and how to listen so people will talk. Very, very thoroughly and carefully and quickly. How to create a safe container. And so much of that is about encouraging people to share their personal stories. And there could be parts of the stories they've never felt safe to share anywhere before. And there could be parts that they've shared but has not been met with what came back as a safe audience. And so they've shut it down, and they're not going to easily risk that again. And so our intention is to connect heartfelt community so that we can hold each other as we move through the changes. Trained facilitator, that's me. And I used to do a nonprofit parachurch agency in Las Vegas a long time ago. And I trained leaders there to come in and do the work. And the work was around codependent recovery. So it was deeper work. It was family work. It was feeling work. And that's how I learned how to keep safe places in 20 or more people. So we're going to be, I'm going to be training you. You will learn by watching the way I facilitate the group, and then you will learn. And if you want to go on a facilitator track, you'll learn by becoming facilitator. So you can go start your own group, your own page, your own anything. If I'm your example of what not to be, then take the facilitator training and go out and do it better. Do it your way. I'm all in. I support you. Conflict resolution. Be prepared to address conflict that arises. One of the things that breaks trust is when it becomes a not safe space and nobody calls it what it is. I am known for talking about the elephant in the living room. I am known for putting that elephant right on the table so everybody can smell the goo right under their nose. It's uncomfortable. And it's necessary, because if you can't heal what you can't feel, and you can't fix what you can't see, and we have walked through most of our lives with the blinders of our own story, making sure that nothing rocks our boat too much or that nothing changes too fast. Honey, if you didn't learn anything else from 2020, you learned that the timeline of this is out of your control. So, can't control it. Didn't cause it, can't control it, can't cure it, but I can learn to hold my space and hold your heart during chaotic times. And that is what we're here to do. Navigating intersectionality and fostering civil discourse are essential strategies for promoting racial equity in the United States. By educating ourselves, developing inclusive policies, amplifying marginalized voices, building coalitions, engaging in critical reflection, self-reflection, I can tell about the truth about you all day long, and that is a gotcha. The only truth that matters is the truth about me. And when I share the truth about me, now I am risking. I am vulnerable. And one of the things that makes a safe place, I call it equal sharing, equal risk. Nobody gets to be silent in a small group. We share as we're able so that we can become braver and bolder and a better change agent. And change is what's required. And the change begins here in individual hearts, then collectively to the 20 people each one of us influence, and then it radiates out from there. Together, we can work toward dismantling those interconnected systems of oppression that hinder our progress and build this world where all of us, regardless of our identity, can thrive. Because right now, what hurts one of us hurts all of us. And what lifts one of us lifts all of us. As a collective, let's rise. Thank you for listening and sharing this time with us. As always, you can check our resources at onevoiceevolving.com. Like, share, subscribe to this podcast, and tell your friends. I love you. We'll see you soon.